All right, so here we are right off the 5 in beautiful La Jolla, California. And we're at a spot I picked so we can start doing our next segment in the Surfskate training series on cutbacks. And if you watched our last video series, you saw some basic body movements that you could apply to your everyday surf skating. That would translate directly to your surfing and would help you build power and confidence, both for beginners, intermediates, and even maybe even develop a different understanding of surfing for some more advanced surfers. Today we're going to talk about bottom turns and cutbacks and how they relate and how to get on that subject. We really just need to get on the topic of turns. And before we can really get on a really complex detail about turns, I want to talk to you about something you've probably never heard of, and it's called like a board performance or board performances. And it's basically the things that you can do that will control how your board moves. All right, there's 4 things you can do, okay? Bear with me here, I'll be real brief. There's 4 things you can do to manipulate your board at any given time, okay? Number 1, and also obviously most important, is pressure, okay? You can apply pressure to your board. When you stand on your board, you apply pressure to it. When you bend your knees or you compress, you apply more pressure. When you stand up, you unweight, so you abruptly release pressure, having an effect on how the board reacts, right? When you squat really fast and reweight, it also abruptly changes pressure, which also affects how the board will react. All right, so number 1 is pressure. Number 2 is tilt. All right, so your board, once you've applied pressure to it, can tilt towards one side or the other. If you're in snowboarding, you think of this as heel side or toe side. I don't care what you call it. You're tilting the board, front side, back side, heel side, toe side. I don't care what you call it. All right, so number 1 is pressure. Number 2 is tilt. Number 3 is pivot of your body or twist of your body. And pivot of your body, I mean turning your shoulders in relation to your hips, in relation to your knees, in relation to your head. And so like if I'm gonna rotate on regular left foot forward, I'm gonna rotate left, right? That's a pivot. And I can counter rotate actually. If I counter rotate it this way, that'd be a counter pivot, right? Because I'm pulling my front shoulder towards my back shoulder and I'm pushing my front shoulder behind, my back shoulder behind me, right? So that's a counter pivot, and that's a pivot. So pressure, tilt of the board, pivot of your body over the board, and finally torsion. What torsion is, just to oversimplify it, is if you look at your board, there's 4 segments, and where you're applying pressure when you're surfing. When you're standing on it, you've got toes, you've got heels, you've got toes, you've got heels. And so if you break it into 4 quadrants, you can, for example, be pressing on this toe while simultaneously pressing on this heel, and that creates a different kind of flex in the board, right? So the board can twist torsionally, and that's what I mean. So you've got pressure, tilt, pivot of your body, and torsion of the board that all affect how your board moves in the water. All right, now step 2, what is a turn? All right, a turn is pretty simple, right? You think you know what a turn is. I mean, a turn can be anything. I'm gonna use this banana right here to teach you about turns, okay? I don't care where in nature, turns exist in nature, okay? And turns have 3 phases: initiate, control, and finish, or 1, 2, and 3, or IC and F. I don't care what you call it. What matters is during the initiation phase of the turn, you're using some combination of pressure, tilt, pivot of your shoulders, and torsion in the board to initiate a turn, to put it into the control phase of the turn, where you're using pressure, pivot, tilt, and torsion to control the board, into the finishing part of the turn, where you're using, yeah, you guessed it, pressure, pivot, torsion, and tilt. It doesn't matter what order I say them in, it doesn't matter. You're using them all at any given point, don't you see? And when you do one turn, it can connect immediately into another turn. And that's why you have initiation, control, finish. From the finish stage, you can initiate. From the finish stage, you can initiate, and then control, and then finish another turn. And then, hey, look, I've initiated and controlled and finished a turn. Okay, so now I've been talking fast because I'm trying to get a lot in here. But now you see that we can use pressure, pivot, tilt, and twist in order to initiate, control, and finish turns on our board. And that's how we learn to do cutbacks. And a cutback and a bottom turn is basically the same thing with different timing aspects, blah, 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 blah. Let's get into some exercises. All right, what's the purpose of a cutback? The purpose of a cutback is to cut back towards the power of the wave. The white water, say you're going right, the white water is breaking this way. This is your surfer, front foot, back foot. He's surfing right, which is front side right. He gets a little in front of the wave, he cuts back in order to stay close to the power of the wave, and then he straightens out again and goes right. Once again, right? And then he can go forward again and gain speed and also cut back again. Okay, what's a bottom turn? A bottom turn is when a surfer takes off from the peak or comes out of a cutback and uses the bottom of the wave to turn towards the top of the wave. Okay? So that's two definitions of cutback and bottom turn. Right? It can go in both directions. And how we're going to practice these is a little snowboarding maneuver that I like to use called J-turns. And it's going to go back to that pressure, pivot, tilt, twist idea. We're going to try to do it just first with pressure. Just by putting pressure, let's simplify this. The goal is just to draw a J with your board. Just like this. All right, you can do a J-turn both ways. So that was obviously going left. So that would be a backside bottom turn or a heel side turn in snowboarding. I could also do one going right, which would be like a toe side turn in snowboarding, which would be like a front side bottom turn in surfing, right? Straight line and a J. Now remember, initially you want to try to do these exercises as simply as possible. You want to use the least board performance that you can use to achieve the goal. So start by just trying by applying pressure to your board, okay? And then once you feel like you got it down, do it applying some pressure and some tilt. And when you feel more confident with that, maybe try twisting your body a little bit and doing the clapping exercise like we were doing last time, right? The reach and clap, right? Because that will pivot your body in the direction you're going. And as far as the torsion goes, it's hard to really think about how you're practicing that, but you've got to think about it like this. When we were talking about stance earlier, I was talking about how I bent my front knee and pulled my back knee down like that in order to push my hips and my knees towards my turn. And if you stand on the board and you think about what that does to the actual board, if I'm doing that, then I've got the pressure on my left heel while I've got more pressure on my right toe. So I'm creating torsion, and that's creating right now a turn towards my heel side edge. Whereas if I was moving straight in the other direction and I bent my knee down and I pressed on the toe and the heel of the other foot, that would move me towards my toe side edge. All right, so there's a lot of information here to unpack, okay? And basically what you've got to do is break it down into the littlest bites as possible and try to practice them separate and then mix them all together, all right? So first you've got J-turns to practice your initial cutbacks, right? Straight, straight. Look, I didn't move my body very much, did I? I'm gonna go to the other way now. There's the other direction. Simple. All right, now we're gonna add some more board performances and watch how my cutback changes. I'm gonna do it the first way just with pressure. And after that, it's gonna get increasingly complicated. So pay attention. Now, if you're feeling pretty good about the J turn, which is more like simulating a frontside or a backside cutback, and you're ready to practice something that's gonna set you up for more bottom turns, then I suggest something that's called like a U-turn. And to do that, yeah, like a U-turn in your vehicle. To do that, you need kind of a big, wide area that's got at least a little downhill slope. In fact, the more downhill slope, the better, okay? And you basically approach it with the same exact philosophy. You start as simple as you can, and you slowly move up to adding more and more board performances and seeing what the cause and effect is. And that's how you decide how you want to train for that sort of maneuver with a surf skate. And so here, I'll show you a couple, just to get you thinking about it, okay? And the goal with the U-turn is obviously to gain speed coming downhill, initiate, control, and finish one turn, and then you would actually initiate, control, and finish another turn, another J turn, but it would be like a backwards J turn to take you back up the hill, right? The goal is to take that momentum up the hill and take as much momentum as you can take with you back up the hill. Yeah, and so that's a quick little tutorial. I hope you learned something about turning in general. I'm sure you did. So yeah, feel free to like and subscribe. Tell me what you think I should do next. What video should I make next? You tell me. Cook out.